There's one essential bit of bike maintenance that's very often overlooked, and you notice this when you jump on someone's bike and you pull the clutch in and you think to yourself, my God, when did you last lube that cable? That's what we're going to be talking about. Lubing your cables, such as your clutch cable, such as your throttle cables. And the thing that's going to make this much easier for you is one of these. As you can see, there's a hole on this end, little clamp system, and then there's a hole here where you can put in a tube and spray lubricant in, and it will force it down the sheath of your clutch cable or your throttle cables. First thing you want to do is wind down the adjuster. Now I'm going to point this out because in every video I've shown this, people keep telling me I'm doing something wrong here. They keep telling me that this bit here is a locking nut and should be against this here. Correct, apart from the fact that this isn't a locking nut. This is one piece. And it's held in place by this system. If you listen, it gives you a ratchet and it actually holds it in place. So no, this shouldn't be up against here. But whatever, if you've got one like this or you've got the one that's the locking nut and the central part, just take the locking nut back and then basically screw it all the way in so you get lots of extra slack on your cable. And then you want to line up the groove in the front of here with the groove that goes through this. Now, wasn't expecting that. In most cases you end up having to take off the actual lever itself, undo the bolt underneath, pull the pin out, and yeah. But on mine it's just, how easy is that? Probably means it's stretched and old. I do happen to know that this cable in the past was an absolute pig. It was completely jammed up and it was really hard to pull the clutch in, even with the stock bigger levers. They lubed it and it improved it for a while, and now it's starting to be a bit grabby again. This definitely needs replacing, but I'm going to make it last a bit longer and I'm going to just lube it up. Okay, I'm going to try and keep this all in frame. So here is the cable, here is the cable lubing tool. What open at one end, as you can see, and the other end just got a small hole. That's because you slide the cable through the middle so it comes out the back there, and then this goes over the beginning of the cable. Now, a couple of things I learned when I first got one of these. You want to push it all the way to the back like that. Don't do that because the channel here is trying to fill it, but it has to go up and back down and it causes loads to squirt out. The best thing to do is to make sure that the end of this piece is before that, so it ends up filling a chamber at the end and then forces that down. So about halfway in, and then clamp it down. No matter how well you clamp this on, it's going to leak a bit, so have a cloth at hand. Now comes the controversial bit. Number one, we don't use this. I have used it in the past and had no problems using it. Now this is where there's a bit of an argument. You see, it's called lubing cables, but some manufacturers say that you should not use any lubricant on the cables because normally they're Teflon coated or something like that, and it means that they don't want any grease and dirt to hold bits and pieces in it. Other people will say to you that you do want to lube them, and they'll even go as far as using 3-in-1 oil or even engine oil. And I've looked around the internet, and trust me, I've seen as many people saying that you can use WD-40 as people saying you can't. I've seen as many people saying you should lube your cables as those opposed to saying you shouldn't lube them. Wet lubes versus dry lubes. There's so many options. Some people say you should only use the stuff that's branded as a cable lube, but we all know that's just marketing guff, and it will cost you 3 times as much. What you use, you decide. But I won't be using WD-40 because this is a water displacement WD. It is not a lubricant, and as well as it will clean out all the stuff and it will lubricate the cable for a short while, long-term wise, it's not really worth using. That's just my opinion. You might disagree. You probably will. What have I used on my cables for all of the years that I've had bikes? GT85. Why? Because it is a Teflon-based lubricant. It's not really a lubricant as such, although it is the lubricant penetrable. Yeah, it's not really a lubricant, but it's more of a lubricant than WD-40 is, which is not a lubricant at all. And it's, as I say, it's got Teflon in it, and basically there is a theory that it leaves a dry, lubed surface for the fact that when this dries off, you end up with Teflon in there, and it means Teflon is like a non-stick. It really doesn't like sticking up, so it slides a lot easier and it gives you a bit of a coating. However, Some cables won't like you using a Teflon based stuff in them because they have Teflon already in them, and it basically causes the inner part of the sheath to break up, and you end up with this like slurry of GT85 Teflon and bits of rubber and stuff, and it can really jam it up even more. So it's actually extremely difficult, even with research, to find a definitive answer as to what you should use without going to one of the Cable Lube branded type things that people suggest you use. This is what I've used, and up to now it hasn't caused me any problems, and I will continue using this until I find a better product that's cheaper, maybe. Because this is the thing, I could just go, you know, get a specified Cable Lube, and everyone goes, okay, well it's Cable Lube, it's fine. You don't have to spend 3 times the amount just to get, you know, Cable Lube written on the can. I could get a Sharpie and write it on there. But I believe my channel is a place where we can discuss this. Feel free to comment and give your 2 penneth on what you use and any problems you've foreseen using other things. What's your thoughts on using WD-40 or not using WD-40, or why you would want to use one thing over another. There's graphite-based things, there's the dry wax lubricants, there's all of these different things. But I think we can have a discussion on this and try and see what we all use and what does and doesn't work. So for me, GT85 until proven otherwise. That's the sort of disclaimer type shit I have to say to try and keep the comments civil. So, remember there's a little hole here, poking at the tubing in there. This GT85 didn't come with a straw. It's got the little adapter, you know, the little hole for it, but they didn't actually come with it. GT85, have you lost your mind? I'm sure these plastic straws aren't expensive or difficult to come by. See? All linked together. Put this around here because it's going to squirt everywhere. And I just give a little presses, and you can sort of feel the pressure, or hear the pressure build up inside the adapter, cable luber, whatever you want to call it, as it forces its way down the tube. Now, what you want to wait for is for it to come out the other end. So I'm going to give this 6 or 7 squirts. You can't really go too far with it because, well, you put too much in, it's just going to be on top of your engine. So be aware of that. I definitely went too far with it because it's all pouring out. And the colour of the stuff that's pouring out is horrible. It's all brown and crappy, so I really think it needed that. Okay, pull the tube out. Undo this. Always check your cable. If you've got frayed wires or little bits sticking out up here, it means your cable is really close to being gone, and you don't want it to snap on you because it's a pain in the arse. But this actually looks alright. It's much cleaner looking now. So we'll pop this back in. Like so. And then basically you just tighten it back up until it is definitely letting the clutch fully disengage. I think this cable's worse than I thought it was. It's dragging. I can feel it's dragging. You can hear it as well. When you let go, can you see how it's not a smooth release? It's... Sorry DIVI, looks like you need a new clutch cable. However, had this not been such an old and knackered cable anyway, it would have worked fine. There is another way of doing this, which is, and this is the people who say using things like 3-in-1 oil and stuff, is which you basically tie a bag around the top of the cable, hang it up and fill that bag with oil and allow it to drain through with gravity. I mean, it's better than it was, but it's definitely not got the smooth feeling it should have. So I need to go and find out how much one of those is going to cost. That is how you lube a cable. These little things are about £5, £6, £7 you can get. This is just a little single. You can get ones that have got like 2 screws on it and it's a bit longer. I'll put a link in the description to one. An essential piece of kit that I think every bike owner should have because it just makes your life so much easier if you use sprays to lube your cables. If you do it the old-fashioned way with like a plastic bag and gravity-fed oil, then, well, no, you don't need one. But I don't know what is and isn't definitely right and not. I can see why you wouldn't want to overly lube your cable because you can then pick up loads of grime and dirt that will build up in there and destroy it quicker. And that's why people say don't use any lubricant at all. As I say, it's very difficult to know what is right and wrong, and I think different cables of their construction make a difference as to whether what you're doing is right and wrong. So there you go, links in the description to the oiler and some GT85, but as I say, use whatever lubricants or not lubricants, sprays, whatever that you are happy to use. Don't use my recommendation to necessarily do anything, do your own research. But as you'll find out from the comments of this video, I imagine we're going to have some very mixed opinions as to what you should and shouldn't do, and the reasons for and not for. It's always good, I should add, if you're going to say what you use and why you believe that's the right thing, explain why that's the right thing, not just because I think it is, because that doesn't mean anything. Catch you on the next one. Amazon, there is a link in the description.
Oh, you laugh at that?
Come on.
I'll have you know, this is a machine.
You could not make that shot if you tried.
Does it? No, never crossed my mind for a second.